It's June the 8th and we're continuing our progress through the book of 1 Kings, and today we're in 1 Kings 3 and 4. And we're looking at the life of Solomon, and in particular we're looking at a very important encounter early in Solomon's reign here, when he goes to Gibeon to make sacrifice there in the high place, one of the most famous high places. This is before the temple was built, and while he's at the high places he sleeps and he has a dream, and in the dream God speaks to him and offers him to answer his prayer. And there's a beautiful expression of Solomon in his dream to God. He basically says in verse 7 of chapter 3, he says, "I'm just a little child." There's something so important about the humility of who we are, recognizing our fragility and our limitations before God. And Solomon, even though he's this great king, starts off by saying to God, "I'm just a little child and you've given me this great responsibility." And so the thing he says he wants more than anything in verse 9, which is such a beautiful expression in the Hebrew, he says he asks for a lev shomer, and that means a heart of listening, a listening heart. And it's so impressive seeing that Solomon asks for this. And in fact, because he doesn't ask for long life or riches or the lives of his enemies, God says he's going to give to Solomon wisdom more than any man, as well as giving him those other things. It's a great blessing seeing this heart of Solomon, that he needs God's help, he needs God's insight. And there's an example later on in chapter 3 of Solomon's wisdom, where he has two prostitute women who come to him and they're squabbling over a child, and one of them says that the other suffocated her child in the night and stole her child from her, and so has made out that this is the woman's child, and she claims it, but there's this squabble going on, and Solomon basically sorts it out by calling for a sword, and he says, cut the child in half and give half to each of these women who are squabbling over this living child. And the one whose mother was the mother of the child then says, no, don't kill the child, give it to the other woman. And Solomon realizes that she's the true mother of the child because she has compassion and mercy on the child. And this spreads as an example of Solomon's wisdom and insight and his discernment. The word binah in Hebrew means not just wisdom, but actually the ability to tell between. The word ben in Hebrew means between, and binah is the art, the skill of being able to discern, of tell the difference between. And then in chapter 4 there's a whole list of Solomon's setting up of his kingdom, the people who are in charge, Benaiah over his army, Zadok, and interesting, Abiathar is listed there as priest as well, even though he's been sent away. And there's a whole list of those who are over the regions, the provinces, and who are to supply the king with his needs. And as we move on to the chapter, we see that Solomon has huge wealth. He has thousands of horses. He has thousands of servants. He has everything is at his disposal, and there is peace. Now, interestingly enough, towards the end of the chapter, towards the end of our chapter 4, there's a change in the Hebrew structure, and chapter 4 in Hebrew finishes and chapter 5 begins while our chapter 4 is going on. So going into the end of chapter 4, which is actually chapter 5 in the Hebrew version, we also have a celebration of Solomon's wisdom, of his ability to make proverbs, and we'll come to there'll be a place for proverbs. Obviously there's a book of Proverbs that we cover another time, but these proverbs are called mishalim in Hebrew. That means kind of life sayings that are for guiding life, for ruling life. They're not just cute sayings, not just old wives' tales. These mishalim are kind of life sayings. They're key for ruling in life, and he has 3,000 of those. It also says that Solomon wrote 1,005 songs. He was an amazing poet, and some of those are included in our Psalms even today. It also tells us that he was a great naturalist, studying the trees, everything from the cedar to the hyssop that grow out of the wool. That's from the very finest to the very most common. And also animals, all kinds of animals. He had this really great interest in things. He was kind of an early scientist and outshone the wisdom of the surrounding nations, of the peoples of the East and of Egypt. And this is all because he said to God at the beginning, God, I am just a little child, and what I need is a lev shomea. I need a listening heart. May we all ask of God day after day that lev shomea, that listening heart, that heart of wisdom and understanding. Have a very good June the 8th.